What is going on, everybody? It is yours truly, the Ace, here with my guy T, the overly emotional YouTuber. How you doing, my guy?
I'm doing good, man. Today I'm actually not that emotional, so I'm
Well, we're
like
gonna get you there.
evenly emotional. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. By the end of this, I might be crying. Who
we're
knows?
gonna get you there as we have ourselves a special video for you guys, the most emotional MCU moments. So I had to bring on my guy T, who is known as the overly emotional YouTuber, so we can talk about our top 10 most emotional Marvel moments. Now, full disclosure, this we will be talking about spoilers. So if you have not seen this video, you have officially been warned that we're about to hit you with some hard hitting emotional stuff. So, ooh, get your yeah, it's gonna be one of those videos, man. Definitely get your tissues out, get that little tickle out of your throat, because we're about to take you on a field trip. We're not crying, you're crying. So, with that being
Exactly.
said, the top 10 most emotional MCU movies. I'm gonna start it off. For me, at number 10, we have Trust Me, True Believer, the Stan Lee cameo from Captain Marvel. The reason why this moment, I should say, is so high on my list is because this was the first cameo that we saw since the death of Stan Lee, right? Now, it wasn't his last cameo because we did see him in Endgame, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the Endgame cameo. But this last cameo that we saw from him in the Captain Marvel movie was so tiered, like it hit me for real. Because I remember going in and didn't expect a lot from Captain Marvel, but then all of a sudden you hear him the line of "Trust me, true believer, trust me, true believer," and he's reading his own script. He's Stan Lee. He's reading his own script from Mallrats, bro. When she pulled her down, and you just see him smile, and it's lighting in the background, it hit me. I said, "Oh man, Stanley's dead." Like that hit me like right in the feels. Is that on your list?
It is not. Unfortunately, that one is not. There's not much from Captain Marvel that I honestly remember.
Yeah.
Not saying I didn't enjoy the movie, uh, but it wasn't one of those emotional. Like I don't remember because like I went off of. I didn't go rewatch any of the movies. I just went off of feelings, right?
Yeah,
That's
of
how I do
course.
my movie reviews. And like, yeah, it just Captain Marvel just didn't rank up there with me.
Yeah, that movie is not good, but that moment was
Yeah.
epic. Because, like I said, it was at that very moment that it really hit me that Stan is gone, and I just remember being in the theater, just like, oh. And it took me about 5 minutes to kind of regroup myself. So that
Mm.
goes down as my number 10 most emotional MCU moment. So what do you have at your 10?
So at number 10, I have Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Rocket, Raccoon, Lila, Teefs, Floor,
Mm,
the crew of animals. And I'm not a big animal guy. I'm not like a dog lover. I'm not a cat lover. I have a cat. My cat annoys me. But he's mine. He's our family's, pet. Um, but yeah, the scene where they kill all of the animals and Rocket is like, uh, unconsolable at this point, and it just like that whole backstory was deeper than it had any rights to be. Like
mm,
Rocket's backstory, when I first heard that they were doing this backstory, I was like, okay, who cares? And then I see it, and I was like, that was the best part of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 for me. And the scene where the animals die was just heart wrenching. The scene where he just reaches in and grabs the rocket like that itself at the beginning of the movie when he goes in there, yeah, they show all of these different raccoons and he's reaching in their form. Of course, a little baby raccoon, like
yeah.
it just that whole backstory. But that scene in itself was gripping. Like High Evolutionary, I wasn't the biggest fan initially. When I watched it a second time, that's when it really hit me. I was watching with my wife sitting on my couch. And I was like, man, I'm just sitting there, trying to. I don't know if you do this, but like, especially when I'm on my wife, I'm trying to turn my head the other way and try to, get out the corner of my eye. But I was like, man, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, my allergies like
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you got to be a cat in here or something like yeah, something like that, dude.
exactly.
If that's
So,
your number 10, bro, you about to have some. Because I have that way high on my list. Like that one hits me hard. So if that's at your number 10, I would.
because I'm not an animal person, I know
Yeah.
people
Oh,
who
okay.
like the animal lovers. They probably got this might be number two for a lot of
Yeah.
animals, but I'm just I kind of detached from the furry friends for the most
Yeah.
part.
Got you. And it bodes well that PETA actually gave their stamp of approval on it because the animal cruelty is something that could turn a lot of people off to this movie.
Oh
But
yeah,
PETA kind of did their stamp of approval. All right, so number 9 for me is Mark saves Steven from Moon Knight, where Mark, the moment where Mark became Steven, and we finally got to see the background into that is so sad, man, because like his brother, you know what I'm saying, like accidentally, dies as they're playing in the cave as children. And
mm,
the grief that he went through with his mom just giving him so much grief where he had to manifest a whole different persona to
yeah,
protect himself. And Oscar Isaac puts on an absolute acting clinic in that one scene after his mom's funeral where he's just, you can see the transformation from the Mark character to the Steven character, and you just feel the moment with his acting ability. And it hits you even harder to know that when Steven takes over, he has no recollection of his mom's, I'm saying, death at all, or his brother's death. He's still on the phone from the first episode. He's on the phone with her the entire time. But we're thinking like, what is going on? Like in my mind, I'm thinking, did he manifest his mom? Like, is he, because with DID, is his mom really not there? But
mhm,
come to find out, he created a whole different persona to protect himself. And that one
yes,
scene where his mom comes into the room and she starts like beating on him, and it doesn't show it, and it just shows their reaction.
mm.
And like I said, he to create a whole different personality to protect yourself is just so emotional to me.
I think with that show, it that that point you just made there, I think that the show could have leaned more into his psyche.
Mm-hmm.
It went because the first few episodes it did. I felt like it did, and then it went into the suit. Like then it just went into the bombastic ending with like the big kaiju fight, pretty much like at the end of it. And I feel like it would have been better served if it had leaned more into that because his story, the story itself, we were talking about on Zach's channel, was talking about characters, right? Instead of just it being a gimmick. And like that was those first few episodes was very much so just a story about him. We didn't see Moon Knight. I don't like. We saw glimpses, small when he would fade out, when he would black out, which I thought was fantastic. Like the
Yep.
episodes where he would just and I just didn't feel like they leaned enough into that. That's why I don't hold the show very high because it went from being a very emotional, very, I mean, like you said, this traumatic um, childhood, this traumatic event that happened to him, and it just went away from that. It's like it stopped and they just never went back there. Like they just
Yeah.
started going into the fantastical, and I think that's where it lost
Yeah. The show could have been better if it just leaned into just, the character building and stuff like that
me.
because like it's just such an emotional moment. And
Hmm.
in these moments I often put myself in the shoes of the characters. To have to go through the trauma that you're going through to create a whole different persona just baffles me, you know what I'm saying? And DID is something that fascinates me, you know what I'm saying? It was done well in the movie Split. Um,
Mm.
but it's just his character, man, just to protect himself, just it's just crazy how it ended up like transpiring. What do you have with your number 9?
So at number nine, I have a Civil War. When Tony finds out that Bucky is the one who killed his parents,
Mm,
and there's like Robert Downey Jr. That scene where like Cap is kind of like trying to talk him down, and he's just like, now, but like now I got to put pause on you. Like he just this is in my head. I can see Robert Downey Jr. looking like this confused look, this is angry look, this is hurt look, because the whole movie built up on the first scene with the AI where he's talking to his parents. Um, and then it just crescendos with him finding out that what Bucky did, and I thought that was such a powerful scene. And then that fight, the fight that follows it is so much anger in it. Like every blow is just this angry blow, and Cap is just trying to save his friend. Like there's so much emotion in that scene. And as I was watching like the third or fourth time, it still hit me. It was still so much raw emotion. And it was like every punch meant something.
Yep.
Like every block meant something. It was like, man, it was the story being told within the story, within the action scene. And it just showed how great action scenes can be when there's emotion behind it. It's not just being fantastical for the sake of being fantastical. There's like this really heart wrenching fight, man, because he lost his parents. Like, and
Hmm.
you know, I don't know what that feeling is, but Robert Downey Jr. made me feel that. Like I felt that watching it, and it was
Yeah.
such an emotional scene, and I just felt I felt his pain during that scene.
Yeah. I have that as one of my honorable mentions. It didn't make my top 10. What gets me about that scene too is from the Howard Stark perspective. Because if you go back to the first Avenger, or I'm saying, like Fly, they were friends. They knew each other. I'm saying,
Mhm.
they were in Shield together. So imagine you being Howard Stark in that situation, and you realizing, like, what are you doing here? And you're feeling, the last thing that you feel is that ultimate betrayal by
Mhm.
somebody that you know. And like I said, I agree with you as far as everything was hard hitting in that scene. Like, Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. puts on a good display in that. Like, what makes these moments all emotional are the actors too. The actors
Yeah.
do such a phenomenal job, and hats off to Robert Downey Jr. where he actually makes you feel that moment. He feels betrayed, and then he
Mhm.
feels
Mhm.
anger, he feels sadness, the death of his parents, and that one scene, that one line where Cap is like, it wasn't him. He's like, I don't care. He killed my mom. Like, oh
Yes.
my gosh,
Yes.
man. That just
Yes.
brings it home. Like, it doesn't matter if you're team Cap or you're team Iron Man, you feel that moment. Even though I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
blame Bucky, because he was brainwashed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I blame
Yeah.
Hydra more than anything else, but a lot of people are like, they get mad at Bucky over that. You blame Hydra, but at the moment, all he saw was
All you
red.
see is the face. Yeah.
Yep,
All
that's
you see is
all he saw.
what's in front of you. Yeah.
Yep. So that's a hard hitting moment too. That made my honorable mentions. Um, Number 8 for me is Loki's fate from Loki, season 1, episode 1, where he sees his future in front of him. Because you have to realize, the Loki that we knew was from 2012. He didn't experience any of the events that the main timeline Loki that we knew. So he's seeing it all transpire in front of him. And he's confused at first. He's like, what is this? Like, what's going on? Then to see the events of Dark World where his mom dies, what I'm saying? Basically because of himself. It was his own fault why his mom died. And then seeing the relationship with his brother, which he doesn't know that relationship. Like I said, he doesn't know any of this stuff. So to see the relationship from his brother before his very eyes, then his dad dying, his people dying, and then all of a sudden at the end, who a guy that, quote unquote, thinks he has such glorious purpose, ends up seeing himself working with Thanos and
Mhm.
seeing his own life, you know, die right in front of him. So that display that Tom Hiddleston put on, where Tom Hiddleston put on an acting display in his emotions, because you see the confusion lead to sadness, lead to anger at the end, and then just realizing that your life was kind of pointless. Like, it didn't amount to what you thought it was going to be, but he needed that moment to ultimately be who he was at the end of Loki season 2, because that changed his whole character arc. But
Correct.
Tom Hiddleston, kudos to him, man. But that scene where he just sits there and watches it all manifest in front of him is just so, like, heart wrenching to me.
Man, I forget so much about Loki. Like I completely forgot that until you just that makes me want to go watch the entire series again.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. I remember watching that scene, and just the thought of that though, the thought of you seeing one. he's such a narcissist. He thinks that he's
Yep.
he's the hero in his own story. Like he's always going to be the hero in his own story. But to see, like you said, you are not as special as you think you are. Like you've led this completely flawed life, and then especially the way he went out. Like Steno just pretty much snaps his neck and just sucks the life out of him, like right then and there.
Yep.
And of course, the scene like there's no coming back from that, which I always think is funny. Like the line that's like he's not coming back from that. Well, he's
Yeah.
Loki. He's always gonna figure out a way to come back.
Exactly.
But yeah, just like you're right. I remember that scene. Like as you said, I remember like it's like I'm just rewatching in my head, and very very powerful scene because
Yep.
Loki just they did that right. They
Yep.
got that right.
And Tom Hiddleston, like I said, if eventually I want to do the best characters in the MCU, my best characters, Tom Hiddleston would be up there as Loki because like Loki's such a, like you said, a narcissistic character, but he's very flawed at the same time too. Like the one scene that gets me is actually in Thor. The first Thor is when he finds out that he's a frost giant, and he
Hmm.
says like that. The way Hiddleston portrays that performance, he's like, Am I the monster that parents tell their kids about at night?" Like you can feel it, and it's just the way he's able to just put on such a great performance, like you just feel every single moment. That's why that Loki scene where he's just seeing his entire fate and realizing like this, I guess I wasn't as great as I thought I was going to be, but he ended up making him greater than what he ultimately was going to be because of that moment. Um
For sure.
so what do you have at your number 8?
So at my number 8, I have is this Endgame? Is this Infinity War? Well, it's the Black Widow and Hawkeye
Endgame.
on, it's Endgame where one of them has to sacrifice themselves. So it's not exactly Natasha's death that's emotional to me. It's them fighting to
Yes.
see who's going to sacrifice themselves. So at first, when when they're up there and they're like, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking about? Are you thinking like are you like both?" At first, I thought like, "Oh, Hawkeye's about to sacrifice. Like, he's about to like kill her."
Yeah, that's what I
And
thought
then,
too.
and then it's like, "Oh no, they both want to sacrifice themselves for the greater good." Right? There's the like that is hero 101. Like it's like like you're gonna do whatever you have to do and them fighting, and it was such a emotional fight because one, you could tell they love each other, right?
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
and it's not like this romantic love that it's this like sisterly, brotherly, whatever kind of familial best friend, whatever it is, there is this love there, and they both want to save the world, but they both want to save each other at the same time. Like, and that to me, much more than the death itself, much more than the actual fall, is just the emotional part to me. And I was just sitting in the theater in awe because I'm like, oh snap. And every single action that they did was one that was pretty brilliant how they were fighting with each other or playing off each other because they knew each other so well.
Yep.
But just like Jeremy Renner doesn't get enough credit because Hawkeye should never have worked. Like he shouldn't have worked in the Avengers. He shouldn't have worked in Thor. He should not. Like he is such a joke of a character to me. Like coming from the comics, it was like Hawkeye is going. Was he going to have a punching? Was it the boxing glove arrow? Like kind of like Green Arrow. But Jeremy Renner kills it. Like in that scene itself, the music playing, like everything about it was just epic. And then she ultimately dies, and like the look on his face, one, he's like hanging off of, like he's barely there, and all I could think of is like, dude, your ribs got to be broken. like like that in my mind I was like, man, you were just and then when he has to tell people that she didn't make it,
Mhm.
just very very emotional. Of course, Endgame was very heavy-handed with the emotion, but that scene in itself was really done well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you because ultimately, if you think about it, they're fighting each other to kill themselves, pretty much. Like,
Mhm.
and it's just, it's so sad, especially like leading up to that, how close they've gotten because Natasha was the only reason she became good was because of Clint.
Hmm.
And it's like they both were trying to, like they said in the movie, get that red off their ledger. Like Natasha knew that being an assassin, she was trying to do right. Clint, because of what everything that happened earlier when he became Ronin and stuff like
Hmm.
that. They're basically both trying to redeem their past actions. So by making the sacrifice for the greater good, so they're fighting over who's going to make that sacrifice, and it's compiled on more with, because Infinity War was really, Thanos was the main character of Infinity War if you really think about it, right? The movie started and ended with Thanos. The
Hmm.
original OG 6 were the main characters of Endgame. So the
Hmm.
fact that we lost somebody that saying we've known, and it hits harder on the rewatch when she says, "See you in a minute." They don't see her in a minute. And
Hmm.
it's like when they come back and Hulk's like, "Where's Nat?" And they're all like, "Did she have family?" And they're like, "Yeah, us." Like, oh my gosh, man. That scene just, yeah, I
Yeah,
have that as one of my honorable mentions. It doesn't make the top 10, but that scene is very hard hitting every time you rewatch it.
for
Um
sure.
Number 7 for me, I have Yondu's death as number
Mm.
7 for me. Little bit low on the list. A lot of people would put that a little bit higher on theirs. Um Yondu, it's just crazy because like the whole father son, you know what I'm saying, father figure
Yeah.
son dynamic. Peter was in search of his father the entire time, but little did he know he was right there in front of him.
Hmm.
And when Yondu made that ultimate sacrifice, and great acting display too by Chris Pratt as well, that makes you feel that moment. Um, Especially because they had bonded, like, right before that moment, and Yondu went to save him from Ego, and it was just one of those things where you didn't realize that what you had in front of you until it's about to be gone.
Yeah.
And the Mary Poppins scene was hilarious. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
They bonded over that, and then all of a sudden you just don't see it coming. And
Hmm.
the acceptance of Yondu's character, because Yondu was going through it, and I think he finally came to some self-realization of who he was. And then the send off by Rocket as well, when Rocket's like, you're part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know what I'm saying? Like at that point, I was like, oh, I think he's dying. Like when they gave him that send off, and I was like, oh man. And then to sacrifice yourself for, a son figure, that
Hmm.
was just very, very hard hitting. And it's just crazy because like Yondu was supposed to actually deliver Peter there, and yet he was
Hmm.
the one that ultimately saved him. So that scene hits hard for me.
Yeah, I didn't have the Yondu death on my list. I thought about it, and it wouldn't. It wasn't what the "I'm Mary Poppins" is probably one of the top tier lines because it came out of complete left field.
Mm-hmm.
But like that whole Ravengers arc, like you say, you don't know what you have like until he's gone because
Yep.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I think I wouldn't say suffered because he wasn't there, but I think it would have been a little bit better if he was. Now, granted, Sean Gunn's arc with the arrows throughout the movie that was pretty good, but like Michael Rooker is he's an actor's actor. Like he's such a great character actor. Like every character he steps in. Like
Yep.
he becomes that person. He's not. He's a terrific actor. So I could definitely see why that's there because that death was uh, a lot deeper than it had any right to be. Like
Yep.
it should not have like that character. I thought was going to be a throwaway character, but it's Michael Rooker. Like he's not the household name. Like everybody don't know who he is, but they should because he's a great actor.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, very hard hitting. See, I know a lot of people do have that higher on their list. Like when I talk to people, they're like, that's one of the sadder moments. But it makes it number 7 for me. What do you have at your 7 spot?
so what I have at my number 7 is Infinity War and Wanda losing Vision twice.
Mm,
Right. So the scene where Wanda kills Vision, I was like, all right, man, that sucks. When Thanos comes back and rewinds time, and it was like, man, in my mind, I kind of saw that coming because I was like, all he has to do is run. But when he does, and it's like, holy, and she has to like, and that's what makes Endgame when she comes in, you took everything from me. It was like,
yep.
I felt that, like that scene in Endgame, just that line, you took everything. And when he says, I don't know your name, that boy, like that actually tugged more on my heartstring than the actual death, but just the whole why Wanda became a villain thing. This is one of the reasons why she watched this. Like she had to sacrifice him originally, which destroyed her emotionally. And then Thanos just comes in and is just like, no, you don't get this. I get to do it. And it's like, man, that was tough to watch.
Yeah,
I will say that was tough to watch because it was like, man, you I didn't think MCU would do anything like that. Like that's like not a scene that would be akin to some because I mean it wasn't graphic, but it just was so emotionally heavy.
yeah,
Like it's such like if you think about it, if you're just watching it to watch stuff blow up, then you might not it might not be emotional to you. But if you're invested in the characters, boy, that hurt. That
yeah.
really did.
Especially considering like the relationship that they had. First of all, both of their well, Vision was created from the Mind Stone, and her abilities came from the Mind Stone. So they have a connection with each other that no one else does. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we got to see that really um come to fruition in front of our eyes with starting in Civil War, the relationship that they building with each other and them helping each other through their own grief. Then we got to see it more in WandaVision as well. Um, but for her to have to one hand fending off Thanos and the other hand trying to
Destroying
destroy
yeah,
vibranium, which is not easy, and the Mind Stone, which is also not easy. It's just what she's going through is just like she's pushing like two different like things are just going at the same time, and the emotions there, and Vision just saying like, you know what, you got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, do it,
It's
and then
okay.
to
Yeah.
for her to have to do it, and Thanos coaxing her like it's okay, my child, knowing that he was gonna bring
Yeah.
it back. Like, you didn't kill him, I'll kill him. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, man, like
Yes.
that scene is
It
hard hitting. Yeah. And it actually leads into my number six. That's crazy. Good little transition. And T and I did not talk about this before. It leads
yeah.
into my number six. Wanda sees the plot in WandaVision, where she saw her house plot that Vision
Mm,
had marked out for her, which
mm,
ultimately created the hex.
mm.
Because, first of all, Elizabeth Olsen, one of the best actors in the MC, actresses in the
Oh, yeah.
MCU,
Oh,
she
yeah.
is phenomenal. Like, she does such a great job. And in WandaVision, her seeing Vision be taken apart, which you know how the government is. The government got to make sure they get theirs. So
Yeah.
for her to come in and see Vision on the table and the whole "I can't feel you" thing, that was gut wrenching. Then for her to drive to West Point and see the plot that he had laid out for her in the heart, that he was trying to set up a future for them, and she just drops to her knees, breaks down, and Wanda's, and just loses it and creates the hex. Wanda's one of the characters in the MCU that's lost the most. She lost her
Oh,
brother.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah.
Like, that was a sad scene as well. She lost her family, which is what we saw in WandaVision. You know what I'm saying? She lost her mom and dad. She lost the love of her life, lost her kids. So this is a character that MCU just keeps putting through the gauntlet. You know what I'm saying? And emotionally, like, she just couldn't take it anymore. Like, and ultimately she just made the hex.
There's a group of people who just, oh my, I can't believe Wanda just became a villain. That's like, I don't understand how people don't understand
I'm surprised she didn't do it
how,
earlier with all the shit she went through.
yes, like, I don't understand. Like, if you've never seen WandaVision, okay, I give you that. Like
Hmm.
if you just watch the movies, it could be a little bit surprising, right? But if you did a little like if you did some research or recap before you went, like everything leading up to Doctor Strange, like would have driven anybody else insane,
Yep.
especially someone who has those incredible like that incredible amount of power. Like it power corrupts, as they say. Like power does corrupt, and it corrupted her because of such devastating loss. Same thing like with Magneto. Like Magneto seeing his family go through,
Yep.
everything they went through like that, and now you have the power to do something about it. Why is she going? There were people said, why is she trying to, create kid or like go back and save her kid? Like she's a mom. Like if you've never been a parent, you probably wouldn't understand. Like, and she created like she created them, through her power, which is insane in itself. But like losing them, creating and losing life, like creating anything and losing it, there's gonna be part of you that just it's always gonna be there, and you're always gonna want that back.
Yep.
So I could complete like I understood everything, and it
Same.
made complete sense. Why she went to the length she went, and she does worse in the comics. That's all. I'll say.
Oh yeah,
She's done,
absolutely.
she's
They
done way
tone her
worse in
down.
the comics.
Yeah.
But
Cause she's a character that's gone, like I said, has gone through the most. Gone through one of the most. Her and Thor have gone through a lot.
yes,
Thor's one of them too. I don't know if any of the Thor stuff is on your list, but grief does that to you. You know what I'm saying? And
mhm,
then they incorporated it in the show. But what is grief but love persevering? You know what I'm saying? Like she went
iconic.
through it, man, and like I think that she took a big step back character wise in um Multiverse of Madness, but it doesn't
Yeah,
take away from how emotional her character has been, and it's led to that. I just hope that she gets a good redemption arc going forward because the Wanda character deserves a win, man. She's lost way too
yeah,
many people.
yeah.
Yeah.
I hope she has a redemption arc, but I still need her to say no more mutants. I don't care if I'm 90 years old and we finally get there somewhere in the future in the X-Men, but I need her to say no more mutants on the
Yeah.
big screen. I don't
I
care where I'm at in life.
from the House of M. I
Yeah.
originally thought when they were gonna do Multiverse of Madness that they were gonna. I think I talked to you about this on when you were on Kenny Sparks' channel. I thought that they were gonna reverse it and get mutants into the MCU
Mm.
because like in the comic book she
Yeah.
says no more mutants, wipes out the mutants. If she would have been like no more mutants and then you bring them all in, that would have been dope. But that's a topic for a different time. So what do you have with your number six?
So at number 6, I have Black Panther Wakanda Forever. There is a
Mm,
scene, and this is Queen Ramonda just lost why am I forgetting her name? Shuri.
sure. Hmm.
She gets kidnapped by Namor, and Queen Ramonda is admonishing Okoye for losing her daughter after she just lost her son. And this is a scene where I thought Angela Bassett should have been nominated for an Oscar because she gives this speech where she's stripping her and she tells her everything she's lost. And in the theater, I was frozen because she puts on such a great, I mean, there's just so much passion. And of course, like the whole setup for Wakanda Forever is the loss of Chadwick Boseman. So you can tell, and they said it like we did this for Chad. We did this for Chad. And in that scene, it felt like she was like, I lost him. I lost her. Like and there was just so much emotion in that scene. And then of course Okoye's I can't think Denai Guerrera.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like both of them are just playing off each other and giving this just intensely emotional scene, and it gets me every time. Every time and I'm not a big Wakanda Forever fan, and I only watch it for Angela Bassett's performance because she's so phenomenal in that movie. Every scene she was in, but that scene in particular, there was so much. Like I just lost my daughter. She's the last thing I have in this world. Even though Okoye is the greatest warrior Wakanda, like Black Panther is Black Panther, but
Yeah.
Okoye is really that. She's
She's
the deal.
different.
She
Yeah.
she is she's a general. She's forever faithful. She gave her husband up because he went against Wakanda, and
Mm,
that's what she's there to protect. And just her losing everything, and the fact that Angela Bassett, who is her like she trusted Okoye probably more than she trusts anybody else. The fact that she was so angry, she was so hurt and so distraught, and just the performance she gives in that scene, top tier,
yep.
and she should have won something for that. Like I don't care
Yeah.
what anybody said. Like that scene is the best scene in any Black Panther movie, probably in top 5 scenes in the MCU for me. But emotionally, there are a few more emotional scenes like but like scenes itself, I think that's just top tier.
Yeah. That scene always harks back to me, makes me hark back to. I feel bad for the Okoye character because Shuri was really the one that wanted to
Of course, yes,
go out
yes.
there. So I kind of feel like her anger was misdirected. Obviously, like you can't be mad at your daughter. You know what I'm saying? You did just lose your
Yeah, she's
son.
lost. Yeah.
But yeah, you have to lash out on somebody. But like you said, their dynamic of them playing well off each other. You can feel both the pain from both sides. And these
Hmm.
are two characters that are both close with both of the main characters. So it's not like it's just some regular foot soldier. You know what I'm saying? She had
Yes.
a relationship with T'Challa. She had a relationship. Okoye had a relationship with T'Challa. She had a relationship with Shuri. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, that's her mother, but I've had a relationship with them just as well. I do think that scene would have been dope if we had a little more pushback from Okoye. Like, let's feel her pain a little bit too. Like maybe her lash out in anger a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. But I do think it was very well done.
Nah, she's a soldier. Like and that, I think
Loyal.
that's
Mm,
why I felt like she's like, I know my role here. I If you lash out the queen, she might just kill you. Who
yeah.
like at this point, like you never
Mm-hmm.
know. But like she is that's one of the things I loved about the Koya character is she is so dedicated to
Wakanda.
duty.
Yeah.
Like the dude, you've entrusted me with this position as the general of the Dora Milaje. I'll never, take that for granted. And that's really because she slams the spear down and she's like, and she just does an about face, just like a soldier, and just, well, all right, you've made it. It sucks. I've been there where you've gotten admonished for something that probably has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Like but I mean, you take it on the chin, and she did. She redeemed herself, of
Yeah.
course, but you're right. That was definitely misdirected anger towards her. But once again, you only could be angry at what's in front of you, like in certain cases like that.
And that makes us what adds on to that scene that makes it sad too. That was Okoye's last time seeing the Queen alive. If I
Hmm.
if I do remember correctly, because then the Queen died shortly after that. So
Hmm.
your last time seeing them, you're butting heads. You're just like, wow, you don't get that closure. So that also adds to that scene. So yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah.
All right, so we're heading into our top five right now. Our top five most emotional MCU moments. If you guys are watching, make sure you hit that like and subscribe to both channels. T's channel will be below. Having ourselves a good emotional conversation here. So as we head into the top five, for me, I have Aunt May's death as number five. Being a huge Spider-Man fan that I am, this death is just another character, man, that they just love putting through the gauntlet, man. They just love testing these characters to see how much emotion they could take. Now, granted, Tom Holland Spider Man, we didn't get to see him lose Uncle Ben, but they talked about it, but we know that's what happened. Instead, he lost a father figure in Tony Stark. So, in this movie, losing Aunt May, who's been there every step of the way for him, was just so emotional, capped off by the picture that's right above me where he's staring into the report in the rain, and I'm like, that's just like rain at a funeral or rain after death is just so cinematic the way he's portraying it. But man, as soon as she said those iconic words, with great power comes great responsibility, I knew she was done. I was like, no. And what made it more emotional was, even though she had gotten messed up, she was still worried about Peter. She was like,
Hmm.
she was trying to make sure he's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And the scene where she's laying there and he's like, Aunt May, he's like, you're okay, you're okay. Like, and she has no idea what's going on. And I'm just like, oh, that's such a gut punching scene. And that one does get me every single time. Yeah,
Every
that
time.
that's up there. Yep.
I have that a little higher on my list.
Mm,
Uh, but yeah, that's definitely there. Which actually leads me into my number five
okay.
is Peter Faden, like in
Mm,
in the Infinity War. I did, boy, when the dust started coming, and I'm not feeling too well. I was in the theater, and boy, I started bawling like a baby when Peter faded into dust because you got Tony there, which leads in the end game, like the pain that he felt. But man, like Tom Holland, just like that scene, I'm seeing it in my once again, I'm just seeing it in my head, like the look on his face as he's looking up at the once again his father figure. Help me, save me. You
I
are
don't want to
Iron
go. I
Man.
don't want
You
to
were
go.
supposed, yeah, like you're supposed to be the hero that saves people. Please save me because I don't want to go. I'm too young. I
Yeah.
got so much to do with my life, and it was just that man, that scene, uh, and the fact that he ad libbed that is even more incredible. Like
Yeah, of
if
course.
that was not written in the script, because if I mean, if he would have just faded, he would have faded. Like there's so many people, Peter Quill just faded. Like it was just like, oh man,
Oh,
no
yeah.
big
Oh
deal.
man.
Yeah, but man, just Tom, that scene with Tom Holland fading was just every time I watch in game, I waterworks when he fades into dust.
Yeah. Zach Milne from Zach Milne Talks Movies is here. Says Marissa Tomei was undeserved in the MCU. I'm glad she got a death scene send off. It was really tough. Yeah, that definitely was
I,
really tough. That actually leads me to my number four. You and I are lockstep, bro. We're like
man,
these
we are.
segues are crazy. I have the snap as my number four. Like just the snap in general. Like we had just talked about on Zach's channel. If you haven't done so, subscribe to Zach Milne Talks Movies. Right, it came out of nowhere because like Infinity War was Thanos' story. If you look at Infinity War, that Thanos was the main character because it started, it moved with Thanos, and it ended with him. I didn't think he was gonna win. And that whole last scene, like Infinity War, Gamora's death was sad too. That's an honorable mention. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, and it's just one of those things where how it happened, people actually left the theater, bro. When I went to first
Oh,
see it, when Chadwick Boseman died, people left the theater. How emotional it was. Like, first starts off with Bucky, Steve, and then you don't know what's going on. And
yeah,
obviously, a little plot hole. Why would the vibranium arm disappear when it's not really a part of Bucky? That makes no sense. That's a little nitpick from my end. Um, and then all of a sudden, you see Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. You're like, he's trying to help Okoye get up. This is not the place to die, and then dies right there. And then Groot with the I am Groot, which they said he was saying father, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. Then you're just seeing everybody, Peter Quill, like, oh man, you're seeing them all just go one by one, and then it's capped off with what your number five was, where dude, Peter going was so emotional, especially considering his spider sense is going off that he's in danger. His healing ability is trying to keep him there as long as possible. And he just can't do it. The Mr. Stark, as soon as I said that, I'm like, no. I sometimes go back and rewatch reactions to people, and I still feel those moments where he's like,
oh yeah,
Mr. Stark, he's like, I don't know, I don't know what's happening. He's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I'm just like, bro,
yeah.
they saved that one for the last part. I was in tears. I was like, no. Like, and then him just sitting there. Like, I remember when the trailer dropped, right, to Infinity War, everybody was talking about, because the one scene showed where Tony was holding somebody, right?
Yeah,
And it was just him holding. Everybody's trying to speculate, who was he holding? Little did we know it was because there was no one left to hold. Like, he
yeah.
was just there, and I'm just like, oh man, like that snap is hard hitting. Like,
It
it's
it
crazy.
is. It is. That leads me into my number four,
There we go.
which is T'Challa fading. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So originally watching it, right, it hit hard, but rewatching it after Chadwick Boseman passed away, I can't do it. Like I see when he goes and the look on Okoye's face is like my king is gone, and knowing we're never like I'm never gonna get to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
It's just talking about it hurts. It's oh boy, that's that's up there, man. Like T'Challa fading. Just thinking about Chadwick Boseman right now, just get me choked up.
Same people, like I said, people left the theater when Black Panther, dusted. They were upset. People were like, "Yo, you just introduced this iconic black character and you killed him off." And I'm just like, "Do you not know comics? He's gonna come back, obviously, but it's like
Yeah,
it does hit
yeah,
harder. Yeah, definitely
yeah,
hits
for
harder."
sure.
And that segues into my number three. Me and T are like this, boy. Mine is T'Challa's funeral. that one. And oh, first things first, rest in peace to the late great Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman, I say this all the time, is one of my heroes. Like legit. Um his story is incredible. How he was able to get his career started real late. He didn't get his big break till he was about 35 years old, which is around the time when I started my channel and stuff like that. And the things that he has done for the African American community, the black community, is crazy. He refuses to be in any role demeaning, black people. He had gotten offered so many roles to be, hey, we want to get you in a slave movie. No, I don't want to do it. What I'm saying? I want to do uplifting roles. Black Panther, Jackie Robinson. What I'm saying? One of my favorite
Thurgood
movies,
Marshall.
Thurgood Marshall. What I'm saying? He refused. Such an icon for the black community. And, you know, him passing really came out of nowhere. Like I
Mhm.
remember seeing pictures of him looking sick, and you know how the internet was.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
internet was going crazy, cracking jokes and
yeah.
stuff like that. And then to find out that he went through, Endgame and Infinity War sick is just it's hard hitting. So for them to honor him the way they did in Wakanda Forever, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And
No.
it started with the Marvel Studios logo. It was just him. No music in the background, no dun 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 dun, just quiet. And the way that they celebrated his life, right? And for the African community, how they're dancing, what I'm saying? They choose not to fixate more on the death aspect. They fixate more on the celebration of life. And the performances by Angela Bassett and and Shuri as well, them walking by in all white and you just feel it, bro. Like that's a hell of a way to start a movie. And you can tell those actors, because of how close they weren't acting.
Mhm. Yeah.
They weren't acting at all. They
Mhm.
had a real relationship with this great human being that was taken away from us way too short. And they were just able to, put it on screen so perfectly, because I didn't think there was any other way that they could have done it. Like I didn't want it to get recasted. You know what I'm saying? I didn't
Mhm.
want him to get, he kind of got killed, like he died off screen. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't want his character to like be in a Black Panther suit and them fighting and
Yeah,
him die from
yeah.
being more there.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think the way they did it was perfect because it helped the Shuri character too, along with the great soundtrack. Wakanda Forever is still one of my favorite soundtracks. I listen to that a lot. But that moment of T'Challa's funeral, man, it gets me every time because, like I said, Chadwick Boseman is one of my heroes.
Yeah, that so that's on my honorable mentions. Um, and not that it doesn't deserve to be like I felt one, like you said, the way the movie start, I didn't think it was going to start out the way it did. The silent, just showing pictures of them. I was in the theater already just destroyed, like literally,
Yeah,
literally the credit, the Marvel sign, and they show all these pictures of them, and I was like, oh, I'm done.
I was
I was like,
destroyed
I'm not.
going in. I was like, I'm not ready for this, but I have
Yes,
no choice.
yes, yes. And unfortunately, I left the movie unfulfilled, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't had nothing to do with Chadwick Boseman. Had everything to do with other things that I thought was, you know, I wouldn't say misdone, but just some decisions that were made for that movie that I just didn't quite agree with.
Yeah,
But yeah, just that scene is tough. It's tough to watch because, like you said, everybody there's not a dry in the theater. There's not a dry on the screen. Like everybody's showing their strength, in it at his funeral because that's generally what you want to do, is you want to remember the person, but you can tell like they're broken up. I couldn't imagine actually filming that scene,
oof.
like especially having to do it multiple times. Like it just has to be painful for all of the actors involved. Because, like you said, they like that Black Panther cast.
They were
They
close.
really like. They really like. Yeah, they became Black Panther. Like they all embodied everything that from Ryan Coogler on down. And I wish unfortunately, um, Michael B. Jordan died at the end of the first one.
Yep.
So like, I just wish that they could have found a way to get him. Like they did get him in there, but it just that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah,
how they did that. But yeah, just tough scene
yeah. They made the they made the most of a terrible circumstance because
for
like,
sure.
and to obviously as these actors get older, I'm saying stuff happens. Like look at what happened with Hunt's, I'm saying that he got recasted, stuff like that. He's gonna be in the next move, the next Captain America: Brave and the Bold movie that he got recasted. But it's like it's such an iconic role because like what it did for the black community, you couldn't recast him. You
No.
couldn't. You had to give him a proper send off. I think they made the best out of a terrible circumstance, like
Oh yeah.
to have the movie go, but
Mhm.
it's just so emotional. Like
Oh yeah.
that's one of the most emotional moments in like all the MCU because he was such a great, not just a great actor, he was just such a great person. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And sometimes today I still go back and rewatch some old Chadwick Boseman footage of him just speaking to people and him
Mhm.
treat the way he treats people and stuff like that. And I'm just like, wow,
Mhm.
like I said, he's my hero. That's my number three. What's yours?
So my number three is Aunt May dying in No Way Home. Like Zach said, Marissa Tomei doesn't like one. Marissa Tomei is drop dead
Gorgeous.
gorgeous. Like
Mm-hmm.
like when they cast her as Aunt May, I just thought that was funny how she played off of Tony. And I just didn't see that coming in No Way Home. I did not see her dying. I just, assumed he was going to save her, get her back to home, and then that would be that. Or he just get her somewhere where she was safe. But what Willem Dafoe did in that movie was just, it was special. It was so much better than the original Spider-Man, and her dying and that scene of him in the rain after
Yep.
that, that's probably the most emotional because I was just sitting in the theater. One, I was in shock. I was like, I can't believe they just killed off Aunt May. Um, but man, just Tom Holland's performance, like you just, and then the other Spider-Man coming in because they felt his pain. Like,
Yep.
oh my, such a great scene. And they start telling their story, and then Andrew Garfield tells the story, about when Gwen died, like and like you have Uncle Ben, you have the Gwen death, and you have the Aunt May death, and it was just powerful stuff, man. And just I wanted to see her character go on,
Mm-hmm.
not just because I love Marissa Tomei, but because Aunt May meant so much to Peter Parker.
Yep.
But then the like going into Spider-Man 4, it's like, where do you go now? There's so much that they can do because now he is truly alone, which I think is
Yep.
just
Oh man. No.
recipe for such greatness. If you can do it, though, please do not do another multiversal. Don't
Which is what
let
we
him.
talked about on Zach's channel.
Yes, let him. Like that loss has to mean something. All of the losses have to mean something. Don't just go back into the well, man. Like that loss was emotional for him. Like that scene was amazing. Like it was so well done of him feeling that pain. He needs another movie to feel that pain,
Yep.
and process that pain. Like let's not move on. Let's let him like have his fat Thor moment. As it like he has to have that like where he
Yeah.
just like you process grief, and people process grief. Don't he's not going to turn into a villain, but like he has to process that for more than just a scene. You know,
Yep. Yeah. So that brings us into our top two. And if you
top
guys
two.
are watching, make sure to let us know in the comment section what your most emotional MCU moment is. Now, it doesn't have to be sad, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
either. What I'm saying? It could be something that just totally got you jazzed up or totally got you excited. It's all types of emotion. Um, Number two for me is Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as a whole, the whole thing.
The whole
Because, like you were saying earlier, what I'm saying, it made your top 10. The Rocket background, the Rocket backstory totally got me to a character that we've seen Rocket be this asshole, this douche, what I'm saying, like throughout the course of this. Why? Because of that, because of his backstory, right? Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which was my number one movie of 2023, was so good that it made 1 and 2 that much better. They were good movies, great movies, some of the best MCU movies, but it made it that much better. Um Rocket's backstory, dude, just with Lila, Tease, Floor, we would just want to fly off in the great big sky. Never got to do it. And, the High Evolutionary is just evil. Like, there's no redeeming character, there's no redeeming qualities
No.
to him. He's just purely evil. And to see him as a baby raccoon go through it, it was gut wrenching. And Lila's death and the death of his friends was very, very emotional. But the scene that gets me is actually Rocket's death, where Chris Pratt's performance gets me every single time. Where Gamora is just trying to tell him, like, he's gone. He's like, no, no. He's
No.
like, I'm not letting him go. Like, that scene gets me when he's just yelling, like, no, no. And I'm just like, bro, even though he came back, just,
Mhm.
and then the emotion of him coming back, it's just
Mhm.
like, them all coming together at the end because and it just shows you how the dynamic of Quill and Rocket has changed. Because at the end of Guardians 2, they kind of came to an understanding where Rocket was, at Yondu's funeral, where he
Mhm.
was like, even though they didn't like him, they showed up for him anyway. And Peter was like, kind of looking at him like, yeah, because that's how we feel about you too. It was kind of insinuated, right?
Mhm.
And then to see everything that Rocket went through, and that scene capped off by them dancing at the end, the celebration of them all dancing, and that's the final scene. That just adds another tear jerking emotional moment that James Gunn just took our hearts and just like, we're gonna put it out there, man. And he did the damn thing. Like I said, that scene gets me every single time.
Oh yeah. The movie as a whole, yes, you can definitely. I didn't have it that high the first time I watched it. Upon the two re, I did. I rewatched it twice. And the second time, I was like high evolutionary because at first I was like, "This is terrible. He's a terrible villain. He's a terrible villain." The more I watched it, the more I thought he was a compelling, a sadistic
Sadistic,
villain.
yeah,
Like he's just like you said, he's just pure evil because he just has this vision. Like when people say toxic narcissism, that's what he's the definition of that, trying to build, a perfect society in his image, which none of it looked like, which I thought was weird. You'd think that he would actually like clone himself. Like if that's what
yeah.
you're looking for perfection, you're perfect. You're perfect, right? Anyways, yeah, that should be higher. But once again, like there's this thing, and I don't want to offend anybody. There's this thing where I feel like people hold animals in higher regard
No,
than
I
they do
get it. They do.
humans,
It's because
and
they're
I,
innocents. It's the innocence of animals. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
which is
Um,
why I don't hold that higher on my list.
yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, I understand it. And it's just like the moment that, like, and then the moment leading up after that where Rocket comes to the realization of who he is. Because remember, in the first two movies, he's like, I'm not a raccoon. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? And then the final scene where,
he's
High Evolutionary is like, you'll never be more than P983. And he's like, the name's Rocket, Rocket, Raccoon. And then they go to work on him. Like everybody got a piece. And it was just so, like, it's one of those things where it's so fulfilling. Like you go through the emotional gauntlet, but it's done well. Like I'm the type of person, I don't have a problem going through the field trips. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to stray away from anything because it makes me feel a certain way. I'm going to be like, okay, I want to watch this. I want to go through that
yeah.
emotion. But I remember being in a theater when Guardians 3 dropped. I couldn't even watch it in my main theater. I had to go somewhere else. I was bawling
Oh
when
yeah.
that stuff happened. That I like the tears were flowing, and it's
Oh
just
yeah.
such a great moment. What do you have for your number 2 before we get into our number ones?
So my number two, I have Cap's funeral, right?
Mm.
And I'm Cap, not Cap. Tony's funeral.
Tony's funeral. Okay.
Tony's funeral at the end of Endgame. Um, It's that one shot where they're showing all these people. They're going through the crowd, and all of the groups are together, and it just hit me that it was over, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was. This is it. This is the last time we're gonna see these group of people together. This is Tony, and Tony, like, actual I am Iron Man, when he snapped and he died. That really didn't resonate that much with me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Peter coming up to him, and then Pepper coming up to him, like, their reactions resonated. But I was like, you know what, man, you lived a good life, man. Like you are a hero. You died a hero's death, right? You died the death that you wanted. Like, this is what you wanted. You wanted to be a hero. You wanted to save people. You got a chance to do that. But his funeral, and then Happy talking about that damn hammer. Tony likes cheap
Cheeseburger.
talking. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
god! Like, every single time, I love you 3000. Holy, who does that? Like, he's talking to him from the. Oh man,
Yeah.
such a powerful scene. Such a Tony scene, right? Like, only Tony is gonna talk to you from, like, create a hologram just so you can see him one last time.
And
But
talk to his
man,
daughter. Oof.
yes, yes, man. Like, one, being a parent, it hits me, with my daughter, and boy, it just that funeral scene all together, getting to see everybody come back one last time, and just, man, once again, just choking me up just think about it. Such a
Yeah.
great. We'll never see that again. Like,
Nope.
that's the last time we'll ever see, at least in my opinion. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. That's what these movies do to us, man. Like
Yeah.
they take us through the ringer. So that brings us into our honorable mentions. I had mentioned a couple earlier before. Black Widow's death we talked about. That's on there. Bucky kills Tony's parents. Two that we haven't talked about. Quicksilver sacrifice gets me. But I think that more or less gets me because of Wanda's reaction to it more than um his actual death, because we didn't have time with the character. We really didn't. Like, we saw him at the end of Winter Soldier, and
Mhm.
then and in Civil War stuff like, well, not Civil War. We saw him at the end of Winter. No, what it was at the end of Age of Ultron was when we saw him first. Then we saw him in that movie that he was in. Damn,
No,
what
he
am I
was
talking
in
about?
Age of
Okay, yeah,
Ultron.
yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm mixing it up. We saw him at the end of Winter Soldier,
Mhm.
and then he was in Age of Ultron. I'm mixing it up. I had to
Yes.
think about it for a
Mhm.
second. Okay, so we didn't get much time with his character, but his death was very meaningful to the Hawkeye character. I mean, hell, he named his kid after him. So,
Mhm.
Pietro. And another one that gets me, Isaiah Bradley's backstory is a tough one. Do you have that? And I don't want to know which number one is yet, but Isaiah Bradley's backstory gets me. I think it would have been higher on our list if we could have seen it rather than being told it. But the performance that the actor puts on completely sells it for me. Where, dude, he was Captain America. You know what I'm saying? He was what Chris Evans could have been, but instead, because he's African American and because he couldn't be the poster boy of being Captain America, he gets, the complete 180. He gets the experiment on, stuff like that. The performance by him is crazy, and I look forward to seeing more of his character in Brave New World. Um, but I think it would have made my list if we could have seen it more than being told about it.
Yeah, that scene in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I wish that entire series was just him. Like,
Yeah.
getting to play, like, man, I didn't know they were gonna go there. I really, when he said my name is Isaiah Bradley, I was like, oh snap, they really have him on. But when he tells that backstory, Carl Lumbly, great actor,
Yep.
phenomenal actor. But telling that backstory, just listening to the backstory, just, man, I wish we could. I know I don't think there's a market for that movie at this point, but I wish we could have gotten, like, something, like
It'd
you
be a
said,
good what if. It'd be a good what
showing
if.
us that backstory, man. God, it's a great story.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we're ready to see that on a big screen or on a small screen. I am. I'm ready. I'm ready to see it right now. Go film it right now. I'll take that over Ironheart any day of the week.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, great, great. I didn't have that on my list, man. I don't know. I just completely blacked out on that.
Yeah. What do you have as your honorable mentions before we get into our number ones?
So for my honorable mentions, I do have T'Challa's funeral. I
Mm-hmm.
have the death of T'Chaka, right? Like, so when we
Mm-hmm.
first meet T'Challa in which one is it? Civil War. Yeah, Civil
Mm-hmm.
War, when we first meet T'Challa. Once it like there's that scene where he says, "Oh, don't worry, we'll catch, we'll get him." He's like, "No, I'll handle it myself." Like
Yeah.
that's when I knew Black Panther was here. Like when
Yeah.
he, no, I'll handle this myself. And I in the theater, I was just like, "Holy shit!" But the pain of him losing his father. There's a scene in Black Panther where he gets to talk to his father, and King T'Chaka when he's in the Great Beyond or whatever they call it in the MCU,
Mm.
where he says, it's my job as a father to make sure you can take care of yourself. I don't know the exact quote, but I
Yeah.
remember being in the theater and just feeling that. Like, so rewatching, because I've gone back and rewatched Civil War a few times. I've watched Winter Soldier a few times. Those are two of my favorite MCU movies. Um, the death, like his death, one just came out of nowhere. Like I didn't see that happening when I first watched it. But like just Chadwick Boseman's just he just killed that role. Like he kills the role. He shows so much emotion on his face without saying much.
Mm-hmm.
So much stoicism in his character, uh, to a fault at some points in Black Panther. But just I thought that was very very emotional. His reaction to Chaka's death. And the third honorable mention I have is Tony seeing his dad in Endgame when he goes back into the past and he
Mm.
has a conversation with him in the elevator and he gives him that hug. And I was just like, man, or there's some people I wish I could have that moment with.
Yeah.
And he gets to have that moment with his dad. And once again, it plays off of, Civil War, like him wanting to spend more time with his family, even though he's a douche when they were there. Like he, angsty teenage kid, right? Rich teenage kid who doesn't understand how important those people are to him. And getting to have that moment as an adult, as a fully matured adult, getting to have a conversation with your dad is like, man, great, great moment. Not tear jerking, but at the same time, you feel it, right?
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah. I know a lot of people would like to have that one last conversation with your loved ones.
Mhm.
So yeah, kudos to Marvel for doing that.
For
So
sure.
that brings us into our number one. Before we do, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Subscribe to both channels, the Ace Avenue. And have you seen that with T? His link will be in the description when I post the video. All right. So number one for me is the end of Endgame. Like, it's hard to pick just one moment, but from the time that Tony snaps to the ending credits is just one huge emotional roller coaster. Starting with Tony's death. Now, the one scene I wish they would have kept in, that kneel down scene that was in the deleted scenes, that would have been
Mhm.
tough. That would have been good to add it in there. But seeing Tony Stark, it was just the end of an era. Like you had said, one of my
Mhm.
best friends is in the chat, Fathom Flaherty. We watched all these movies together, you know what I'm saying? A bunch of us. And it was just an error for us to finally see the end of it. It's just emotional. Like Tony dying, and it all started with him. And I am Iron Man, right? They went back and re-added that in reshoots because that wasn't originally what it was supposed to be. So that the way they capped it off, it just was so perfect. The scene that gets me, what it's the second scene that gets me, is when Tony's there and those three words from Friday when Pepper's there and she's like, Friday, life functions critical. That gets me. That's one. That's the first scene. The funeral scene where you get to see where the camera's panning, you see every error, every generation of hero
Mhm.
there for him, right? And it kind of feels like it's in order, like of importance for him. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Mhm.
just so great that Tony has a heart sequence. It's so great. The I love you 3000, the cheeseburgers. I'm gonna get you some cheeseburgers. Your dad likes cheeseburgers. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the scene that actually will get me in the waterworks is Ned and Peter. When Ned comes back and they're back in school, and Peter just lost his idol, and he sees Ned, and they can't even finish their handshake, and Ned just hugs him and he's crying.
Mm.
That gets me. That makes me cry every single time. Then Steve's ending was just so perfect for him. How it ended, the music was beautiful. Him walking in, finally getting the dance that was long overdue. You know what I'm saying? Like Sam getting the shield, seeing old Cap there. Then it's ended with a great credit sequence that just feels like if MCU would
Yeah.
have ended there, I think I would have been good. I think I would have been like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Good run.
yeah,
Great
yeah,
run.
great 11 years, 23 movies, 11 years, all rolled into one moment where you see every person's name, and then the OG six with their signatures, with the Avengers theme song playing. Like you said it, Tony Stark's death hits hard, but it's fitting. It
Yeah.
fits. So it's sad, but it's a good payoff. But then it ends with their entire signatures. You got Black Widow, you got Hawkeyes, three iconic scenes playing in the background. Black Widow, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, and then Iron Man. When the mask closes on beat, you could have ended it there, and I think I would have been okay.
I've been
So
fine.
the end of Endgame is my number one most emotional MCU moment.
So my number one is also from Endgame, but it's not the ending scene. It is Captain America just got his ass handed to him by Thanos, and he's defeated, but he's the only one left, right? He's the only like Thor's on his ass. Iron Man, I thought was dead at this point,
He was
and
KO'd.
Captain America just gets up, drops his shield, says, "You know what? Like, I thought he was gonna say I could do this all day." He just gets up and he's like ready, and then you hear Cap on your left.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whew. Falcon comes through, and the first person you see to this day gets me every time. Black Panther,
Yep.
Dora Milaje,
Mm.
right behind them, and it's like then Peter, Doctor Strange, Wong makes the joke. Do we got enough? Do we? You think we got more? Like, and then they have this just, and then Hammer comes to Cap, Avengers. Just thinking about it, this should have never happened. Like like none of this was supposed to work the way it did. We shouldn't have gotten Infinity War. We shouldn't have got Endgame. MCU crafted the perfect fight, the perfect scene. Like you said, all emotional moments aren't exactly death scenes.
Yep.
This was just, once again, being in the theater. I'm in there with about 200, maybe 300 soldiers. We're all in this theater, packed, we're deployed, and like people were standing up, people were clapping, people were cheering, and you could hear everything that they did right. You could hear the crowd just roaring because it was just the perfect moment. And I'm just sitting in my seat like this is really happening.
Yep.
This is real, like this is really going down. Like in that Avenger assemble, and then everybody runs, and then they just have this great fight where everybody gets a chance to have their moment. Scott, the moment with Peter Quill and Gamora, like I mean, just iconic moments. Black Panther, I take it from here. Like, oh man, just and then the Wanda moment where she says, you took everything from me, and Thanos says, I don't even know your name. Like that hits so much harder than the head. Like I don't even know who you are, but like I've caused you so much pain. Like, and that's just such an asshole thing to say. It's like like you've really literally destroyed my life, but I mean he was telling the truth. He
That
was
one didn't know
Thanos
who.
from the
Yeah.
past. Yeah, he did. He didn't know who she was, but it was just great, man. It just like that whole culminating with his death and the funeral, like just the entire end of Endgame just worked so well for me. Um, the scene where Jeremy Renner's like fighting to get the glove, like get the gauntlet up, out of the basement when all of the creature, I don't even know what they're called. I can't remember what they're called, but like just man, Endgame just it was the perfect culmination. Like you said, if they would have just ended right there, I would have been fine, man. Like, you know what? Just do some, call it something different. Like, call it
Yeah.
anything else, and just let this be that moment in time where you can always just go back and just feel that same feeling you do watching, phase 1 through 4 of the MCU, because it was special.
Yep.
And they ended it perfectly, with Endgame.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, dude. Endgame is just it's perfect, man, in my opinion. Like I have, like I said, No Way Home is the top of my list. Endgame and Infinity War are very interchangeable. Um,
Mhm.
but that one scene with Cap, like, if I ever decided to get a big display and go away from green screen, like how you have your Black Panther poster, I would get that Captain America still shot of him standing there by himself and Thanos' entire army in front of him because he didn't know the cavalry was coming.
Nope.
He didn't. He had a
He's gonna
broken a
fight.
broken shield, a broken arm, and he was like, "Fuck it, I'm going in. I gotta
Yeah,
do what I
like,
gotta do."
man, just that moment, because I didn't know the cavalry was cut. Like, I didn't know what was coming. I was literally just glued to the screen, like, yo, he's really about to run into that. Like, I thought he was gonna run into it and just start getting beat up and people would start popping in. But man, just on your left, it's like, what? And he
Yep, with the
every time.
dramatic music playing, like,
Yeah.
and then, like I said, because we finally got Avengers Assemble. They teased it in Age of Ultron, and
Yeah.
it's like it was worth the wait. It really
Oh yeah.
was.
Oh
It
man.
really was
It,
worth the
it,
wait.
it was, man.
But I do nitpick on that one, the Avengers Assemble scene though, like because he whispered "Assemble," like no one in the back is hearing him. Like, and then how is I'm just gonna assume Doctor Strange had everybody hooked up magically. That's what I'm gonna
Yeah,
assume.
yeah, yeah.
But
Like,
yeah,
I mean, they didn't need to hear a symbol. They just heard and
yeah.
everybody just everybody just
It's,
start running, man.
what makes me weak too is if you go back and look at that scene where he says Avengers Assemble and grabs Mjolnir, you see Iron Man look like he's like, oh, okay, because he
Just
was knocked out. He didn't see him, like he didn't see him. But that scene, it's just like it's perseverance, man. Like yo, I gotta do. Thor was about to die. Tony's KO'd. I gotta do what I gotta do.
hey
And like you
man,
said, everybody got their due, like the proper send offs. The only one send off that I not the only one dude I think that they did miss out on. I would have liked to see a quick scene of like Bucky getting beat up or whatever, and Tony saving him, and like helping him up, and then like kind of acknowledging him, like you know what, I don't blame you for my
nah,
parents' like death.
nah.
Like
Tony
that's
took
the
that
only
to him.
thing
Tony took that with him to the
to the
grave. He
grave.
he he, he
And
was he wasn't
Bucky
gonna
was
help.
at the funerals though. Bucky was there,
Yeah,
so
I mean Bucky felt bad, but like Tony probably went to his grave hating Bucky, man. Like I don't think he's ever gonna forgive Bucky for that.
yeah.
But you're right. That is like I think that would have been too heavy. Like that would have been too heavy handed. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that would have tipped because like in all honesty, I don't think any like I mean, of course there was speculation of who's gonna die in this one, but
Yeah.
nobody really knew who was gonna die. But I think if he would have had that moment with Bucky, I'd be like, all right, that he's about to die.
He's about to die.
Right,
Well, you knew as soon as Doctor Strange went, you're like, oh, he's cooked.
like
He's cooked. And it was
oh
just
man.
like after Thanos got snapped, and you just see everybody, all Thanos' armies snapping in slow motion. It hits you like, okay, we won, but then it's like, oh,
At what cost? Like, yeah,
at what
like
cost? And then Peter with the Mr. Stark, we won. We won, Mrs. Stark. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then you're thinking to myself, like, maybe he'll survive, but nah, he was wrecked.
nah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
that
no,
life
he
functions
had to go.
critical when Fridays, when he's like Friday, life functions critical. And she's like, you can rest. Like, because they had set it up so perfectly early in the movie where
Yes.
it's like,
I can't
would you
sleep.
would you be able to rest?
Nope. There's so many life lessons. It's crazy to say that for a comic book movie. There's so many life lessons that you can learn
From
from
superheroes.
yeah, like just the idea of being a hero, man. Like
Yep.
and just yeah, it's
or just the idea of
Emotional
being a
wreck
better,
in the movie.
yeah, or just the idea of being a better person. That's what superheroes
Mhm.
aspire us to be, just better people
Yep.
than, you know, than we were yesterday.
Yep.
But that's a good note to end on. You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure.
Like, T, appreciate you for coming on, man. That was our most emotional MCU moments. I knew once I decided I want to do this video, I had to grab my guy T, man. This was such a great time. Appreciate you for coming on. This was the third time you've been on the channel. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, third time you've been on the channel. So tell the people where they can find you at, man.
Or you can find me at the YouTube channel. Have you seen that with T? I also have Letterbox, which is just have you seen that? I've been slacking off on the movie reviews, trying to do this educational journey, trying to reach that end game of having a few degrees. But yeah, I'm there. I'll be here. I'll be a little bit everywhere
I'm sure once you get to your end game with a degree, it's gonna be emotional too. So you deserve
for
it, man.
sure.
You work hard at it.
Sure.
But yeah, another group thing out of the way. I definitely want to do more of these at least once a month. I want to start bringing people on because it's just such a fun time. And
Mhm.
yeah, man, thank you for coming on yet again. Appreciate you. And yeah, of course, you guys know me as yours truly, the Ace, for your sports, movies, and more. Make sure you guys hit that like and hit that subscribe, ring the notification bell. T's channels down in the description. Appreciate you guys for watching. As always, thank you for tuning into the Ace Avenue. I am yours truly, the Ace. Adios.
Go Yankees.